Many thanks for that, Jessica Le Mazurier in the newsroom. Authorities in Algiers have billed it as the most open election in the country's half-century of existence. Algeria's first parliamentary poll since the Arab Spring, one where 75-year-old President Abdelaziz Bouteflika said it's time for a new generation to take over. Yet, voters didn't seem to be that enthused. Turnout in the teens at lunchtime, rising slightly by mid-afternoon. For many Algerians, the real power, not in parliament, but in the hands of an opaque military-backed power that's done little to spread the wealth of spiking oil and gas prices. Skepticism abounds among a disenfranchised, young, urban population. So why then has the Arab Spring seemed to have passed Algeria by, and is reform possible? Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at the Algerian way of doing democracy. We'll be joined by Malik Seraï, consulting firm AIC, a former advisor to the Algerian president. Also with us, sociologist Amel Boubacar of the Paris School of Social Sciences, EHESS. Welcome. It's nice to have you in the studio. Usually you're out in the field.
Yeah.
Also with us from Marquette University, historian Philip Naylor is in Milwaukee. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
The France 24 debate, where you can always weigh in on the conversation, and you have on Facebook and on Twitter, our handle at François F24. We will start, however, in Algiers. France 24's Yves Irvine is covering the election for us. Yves, from what you've seen at polling stations, is it a case of indifference or a purposeful boycott that you've witnessed?
Well, at the polling stations I visited in the capital here in Algiers today, a very slow drip of voters coming to cast their ballots. Now, I have to say, any of the voters I did see putting those papers in the transparent ballots or dipping their fingers in the inks were all middle-aged and elderly. Now, when I asked them what had motivated them to come out and cast their votes, civic duty was the reply on everybody's lips. They said there was a vote and they felt that that's just what you do, whether you cast a blank ballot, no matter who you vote for, you get out there and carry out your democratic right. When I pushed them a bit further, the vast majority were inclined to reply saying, well, where there's life, there's hope. And they were still, despite a lot of people's basically annoyance with the parliamentary power structure, if you like, there was hope that Algeria will and is already changing. When I asked what that change they hoped for was, namely it was the regular bread and butter topics that we see in elections internationally, problems of the economy they wanted to address, very high unemployment here and also very high cost of living. They also said, a few of them, that it would be nice perhaps to see new and fresh faces coming to this political spectrum here in Algeria.
And there were fresh faces, you might say, moderate Islamists allowed to run this time. And yet, Yves, I guess what's interesting is all those people who did not show up at the polls.
Well, indeed, we have yet to get the final figures as we're in the dying hours of voting. The latest official figures we had at 5 p.m. local time was 25% of a turnout nationally, 19% here in the capital of Algiers. Estimates figured that by the time's doors close at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. if there's still people willing to cast their ballots local time, we'll have reached close to 40%. Now, this would be up on the record low of a 35% turnout for parliamentary polls in Algeria in 2007. However, it'd be slightly less than the authorities wanted. They said they would see 45% as a success, but very much more than the worst case scenario we feared, which was a 15%.
All right, we'll be keeping an eye on those numbers. Amel Boubacar, your reaction to this parliamentary election, as we said at the outset, a lot of those voters perhaps feel that the real power is not in parliament.
Yeah, definitely. If Algerians are not that interested in election, is that because they know that the real stakes are not in reforming institutions, promulgating new laws, having reforms. I mean, even having new actors, if the same practices are still there, if the same practices of fraud, even of treating voters in order to convince them that voting is a duty. The last month, for example, we had several ministers and officials that say that this time we are going to use a blue ink, so we will know who has voted or not, that voting is a religious duty. All these kind of incentives in order to convince people that they have to vote. But people feel that actually what the system in power needs is only their vote and not really their political opinions. I mean, they are just, puppets that are used in order to give an impression that Algeria is going through a transparent transition in the context of the Arab Spring, thanks to the legislative elections. But on the civil society side and the majority of Algerians, there's not such an understanding that elections are important for reform.
All right, Malik Sarai, is this election different?
Let's say it's different because of that the young people, they didn't believe what's going on in terms of proposals from the main party, particularly the new one, because they are just new since 2-3 months. They cannot do what they are saying during the campaign. The reaction is negative from all the young people. They said, how can they just come up and then they are proposing politically a very different program? We cannot accept such kind of proposals, particularly that we know what's happened in the past, and they are not at all happy about the old National Assembly. And then the critical is that they are looking what is going on in Europe, and they don't have, as the lady said, they don't have exact idea in political, but they would like to have in the new assembly, I mean, kind of more educated people and less bureaucratic and less corrupted people at the National Assembly. And then they didn't find always on the list of the party the people they concern. That's why I think if we reach between 36 up to 40% this night at 8 night, I think it will be a good score. I don't think so that we go out up 40%, because the only people, the old people and the ladies are going to vote, but the young people, who are the 75% of the population, they reject totally. They said, yes, we agree with what said the President of the Republic. Yes, we agreed about what he's doing in terms of the army to protect the country, but we reject totally the administration, who is a very heavy administration and completely out of of the standards, because once again I say that the young people, particularly educated, they are looking for European standard, the European style of life, and they said if we change, we are not changing through parties, but we'll change through very educated people, maybe even without political, views, but are ready to build the country, because the problem is the institutions, and then it becomes the economics, because we are only using the petrol and gas, and unfortunately we don't have a real economical, we don't have production, national production. We are importing more than 67% of our need. We'll get back to that point.
We'll get back to that point of the oil and gas money in a moment. Philip Naylor,
yes.
In neighboring Morocco, they had a constitutional reform. They have a moderate Islamist who is prime minister. In Algeria, both countries, as we've just been hearing from our panel, there is this keen awareness of an Arab Spring going on, but Algeria is a different story.
Well, it is a different story, in part because, as your reporter mentioned, that Algeria had kind of an Arab Spring back in '88 to '91, when you did have the end of a monopolistic one-party system. And so Algeria has already gone through something like that. Obviously, the tragedies of the '90s into this century has added certainly another chapter of sadness to this history, but certainly Algerians pride themselves, and this is what I wanted to point out in particular, and that people, and I've seen this in different in articles and stories about an apathy of the Algerian people, and I don't think the apathy is there. I was deeply impressed by the lack of attendance at rallies. I saw that people were tearing down placards or posters, but to say that the Algerian people are just apathetic and to equate that with a percentage of participation would be wrong. I think the Algerians are particularly concerned about a system in which they do not have power, in part because of the pouvoir, this power establishment, this deeper state that has been in existence since independence.
All right, the pouvoir, the power, which is something that we can talk about. Change in Algeria, as Philip Neher was saying, something that's come in stops and starts. It started as a student protest in 1988, led to elections 3 years later. But when Islamists looked likely to win them by a landslide, the military at the time stepped in, canceled the vote, and what ensued was a decade of bloodshed, the so-called blood years, where an estimated 200,000 were killed. That's high on voters' minds, says France 24's Salima Belhaj, who sent us this tweet a short while ago. Algeria had her own spring in the 90s and can't face rage and violence again. Algerians are tired of all this, I think. And it's interesting that it was a sentiment shared by many of those who Yves Irvine and France 24's team have been speaking to this week in Algiers.
When I need to know something about religion, I go and read the Quran. We're all Islamists. There's no need to overdo it. We suffered for more than a decade. We're tired, brother.
We refuse to let religion become a selling point. We're not buying it. We've already had to deal with the Islamists. We know them well.
Maybe the Islamists have the answers. Why not? Let's give them a chance, and who knows? Maybe they'll be able to change things.
I would like to see the Islamists come to power, but only if they are fair and don't hide behind their beards and avoid change.
Yves Irvine, the Algerians haven't been going to the polls in great numbers. We've all established that. But have they been talking politics with you a lot?
I definitely haven't had any difficulty getting people to talk politics with me. I've just more or less got the same answer, the same annoyance from the vast majority, that real belief that the parliament is pretty much powerless, that no matter who they elect, they're going to get the same result. One man that I met yesterday, explained to me that he works in the public service here for a hospital for the last 25 years. He has never once in his life missed an election or a referendum or any chance to vote. And he told me that he's simply not going out today because he, despite working hard, is reduced to living in a shipping container with his family, 5 kids, including a small baby. He was just one of example of a general disbelief in change that's going to happen overnight here in Algeria, and most complaining that politicians who earn 3,000 euros a month, which is 20 times the minimum wage here in Algeria, are just disconnected from the reality on the ground.
Amel Boubacar, Philip Neher talking about the term le pouvoir. They use the French expression, I believe, Algerians, which means what? What does that mean, le pouvoir?
Not that much, actually, because the figure of the pouvoir in Algeria is much more abstract than in, for example, Tunisia or Egypt, or where you have a strong man that is targeted by the street, and change will come with the institution of the strongman. That's not how it is occurring in Algeria. In Algeria, you have several factions, several clans that are defending each their proper clienteles, and actually people have the feeling that...
And who are these people? They're people with ties to money, to the oil and gas money,
you have
ties to the military.
Yeah, you have people linked to the informal economy, actually, that are very powerful. You have, of course, the clientele of the president himself, who have benefited a lot this past 10 years or the past 15 years from a large redistribution of money and advantages. You have, of course, secret services who are still leading the way politics are doing are done in Algeria, but all that doesn't make sense to Algerians. They don't want to know who is actually in charge. They just want to see that situation to be actually ameliorated. And they know that it won't come from all this system. They know that it will come only, and even Islamists actually. I mean, it's much more kind of provocative posture to say that, well, we will like to see an Islamist candidate or an Islamist majority at last. First, it won't be feasible because because constitutionally it's not possible to have an Islamist plurality, maybe, but an Islamist majority not. And second, we have to make a difference between who are the Islamists authorized to speak. If you look at Islamists who are already or who have already been in power for the 20 past years, such as the MSP, for example, the Hamas party, okay, they are running for the elections. But if you look at the former activists from the Islamic Front of Salvation, they are even forbidden to speak publicly. So we have to precise and to be more precise when we talk about Islamists, about what kind of Islamists we are talking about.
Malik Sarai, would you say that the conversation among Algerians has
the
grown?
Lady, she has the right to say that. She is right, the lady, when she said we don't know who is Islamist is going to take maybe place in forces. Maybe people, they don't know, maybe the new party of Mr. Jaballa will take more, place than we are looking now. Why? Because the Hamas and the others, since they were working with the government, they lose part of, their credibility. That's why the people, they want something new to go out with Islamic Party, at least about moralization of the economic, because the problem of corruption here, all the people said the only maybe Islamic Party will resolve partially this problem, because this is the main sickness of the Algeria. Actually, we are losing too much time. We are losing much money. We are giving money everywhere without good result according to standards, working everywhere in the world. That's why, particularly people not so educated, they said Islamic Party could solve the problem. At least we will see. But the other side, the fact that we were suffering during the last 15 years, particularly with the problem of when we lose 200,000 people and not less than $15 billion as this destruction of the company burned by the Islamic Party. The other kind of people, they say no, no, and no, because our last experience will never accept such kind of a party to come again through different color or different person. So that's why yes.
I was going to say, but times have changed with the rising price of oil. The price of oil and gas has risen so much, Malik Sarai, if we can look at the chart there over the past 5 years, that the IMF is even asking Algiers to help contribute.
I know that, yes, I know, and I have written many papers about that, because we would reach $207 billion at the end of the year. Even maybe we are going to give an amount of money to IMF to help such countries as Spain and Portugal, for example. But the problem is that the investment here is under a very strong bureaucracy. We can't create 100,000 of small company because of this bureaucracy, and we still have more than 10% of people without work, at least 10.3% according to the official statistics. The other statistic of the United Nations or the organization in Geneva said maybe we still at the level of 23%. In any case, we are living with very strong contradiction. We have a lot of money one side, the other side you have very heavy bureaucracy, corrupted bureaucracy.
In Algeria, I'm just going to cut you off because we have to go to a break. And Algeria, in some regards, still stuck in the past. We'll be looking at some of the solutions when we come back.